think you've also been a little bit surprised at the schedule of some of the kids. They have a lot on their plate.
For sure.
And like you said, asking how they are, I'm big on the circle chat. A check-in. We try and not get carried away. If the subject goes to Pokemon,
Pokemon cards, you know.
Days.
They'll run away with the topic.
Guys, we need to get on to kicking and punching. It's a very quiet issue.
It's not very...
We don't really talk about it. It's in KL, I don't think people really talk about it. But as a guy that's been here 9 years now and coming from a very different culture, I do notice that the kids get burned out sometimes.
I think sometimes parents don't realize how much a kid is going through. Like, kids, they're young, but their life's very, they have a lot of things going on in their life.
Exactly.
Like, you can have, this whole AI thing going on. You can have an AI, not an assistant instructor, but like artificial intelligence instructor. They can have a robot teaching them, but they can't sit down with a student, recognize emotional. That there's a bigger thing than just teaching outwards block to a student.
Absolutely.
And there's a much.
But make the outward block so clear on how we teach it and in what stage, so that we don't need to think about it.
Yeah.
So that we're not. That stuff is already, that's not a challenge. Because the challenge is going to be optimizing your leadership, optimizing your instruction for a person having a human experience.
Exactly. It's mainly like, your main challenge isn't teaching the block. Your main challenge is, what do they do when they don't understand the block? When they're struggling with it, when they don't know. It's more like, how can you adapt your teaching to suit the student? Because you're sort of doing... you're catering for them in a way. And
the emotional availability, I don't know if emotional availability is the right term. I think it's like having the headspace to be able to take on the things that pop up. Like, for example, we've spoken about students who are going through really tricky situations. One more, one of the most impressive, one of the people who was so impressive to me as a student, because I knew him as a happy family man, seemed like, just a great guy, a great dad. Yeah, an adult member. And I saw him go through all the stages of his divorce. And, extremely challenging situation for someone to go through. And I knew all parties involved. I knew them all. And so he did so well. The first thing he did was increase his training to 3 times a week.
He needed it.
And it was just like, but he did such a good job of he knew that he was coming there to get away. It was not, you're not running away from it. You're not running away from it. You are parking it, and it's there, and you'll come back to it, but you'll come back to it better. And he did so well. But also with those people, you do want to have it on the back of your mind.
Yeah, of course.
Let's just, sometimes you don't want to put them in a situation where they're not geared for success.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes in all facets.
Exactly. And I think the fact that he was able to take accountability for it and do something about it, and increase his training 3 times a week, he knew that he had to do something for himself in order to be in order to grow. Otherwise, he probably would have been stuck. And I think the fact that he took that step was a very, very big thing.
Yeah, I was so impressed, honestly. And then that's your real character development, right? That's big life experience, big case of adversity. The double dose of adversity. And he really, Taekwondo was a big part of him taking that on head on. So in terms of the kids, right, they have their individual experiences, which could be challenges at school, could be challenges with family, could be challenges with whatever. Nowadays, we see a lot of kids that are in KL. I think you've also been a little bit surprised at the schedule of some of the kids, how early they start and how finish they late, and how young they are. They have a lot on their plate.
For sure.
And like you said, asking how they are. I'm big on the circle chat. A check-in. We try and not get carried away. If the subject goes to Pokemon,
Pokemon cards, you know,
my days.
they'll run away with the topic.
Guys, we need to get on to kicking and punching. Come on. No, I don't want to. Yes, I want to know about the water psychic type that you just caught in Pokemon Scarlet, but I want to train as well. Yeah, but the ones who like, some of them, there's one in particular I think of, and she just says, I was up at 5 for swimming. Had swimming before school, and our class is like 4:30, 5:30, whatever. I'm like,
there's a positive
long
and
day.
negative thing to that, though. That positives are keeping children busy is a very, very big thing, because number one, it kind of builds their identity in terms of the fact that they have more things to relate to. Like, that's something I want to get onto a bit later.
yeah, we want to talk about that. That's a great topic.
But and then negatives, obviously, they can easily burn out. Children, I feel like I personally experienced that as well, like where I worked myself, not even realizing that I burn out. And I think sometimes parents don't realize how much a kid is going through. Like, kids, they're young, but their life's very, like, they have a lot of things going on in their life. Like, even though it might seem small, like, my friend didn't play with me in the playground. For objectively, that sounds like a silly problem, but it's actually a very big thing for them. And I think, having these activities allows them to distract themselves from all these little problems. But at the same time, it can be very overwhelming for them, to the point where they don't know, obviously they're kids, they don't know how to balance things out, prioritize. That's a very skill that you learn a bit later in life than, 10 years old.
Yeah. It's certainly, on my part, it's certainly not a criticism. It's just a cultural difference. Growing up in the countryside in Scotland, what do you do after school? Going outside. What did you do? Played football. Went walked the dogs. Went to the park. Like, we didn't have maths tuition and Chinese tuition and Quran study and tennis and swimming and the other stuff as well. No, definitely. What the reason I mention it is that I think burnout with kids it's a very quiet issue.
It's not very.
We don't really talk about it. It's in KL. I don't think people really talk about it. But as a guy that's been here 9 years now and coming from a very different culture, I do notice that the kids get burned out sometimes.
Because burnout is one of those things where kids learn it by themselves. Like, no one can recognize burnout except yourself, because then and it's a very slow process. Like, you start to notice yourself not being interested in things as much, and you kind of blame yourself. You're like, why am I not good at this anymore? Why am I not doing this anymore? Why do I not have passion for this anymore? But it's actually not your fault. Like, being burnt out is a very, very, very big thing. And the thing that people tend to forget to recognize, that you just need to rest. You just need to maybe you just need to slow down. Like, that's the only way to fix burnout is to literally just not do as much as you normally do.
Yeah.
And it's hard, especially when, you have commitments, and you kind of feel like a bad person if you no longer commit to something. And I think one of the things about, selfishness, I think it's one of those terms where it's not necessarily a bad thing to be selfish, because if you're not, then you're very much at high risk of being burnt out.
Putting some boundaries down. Kids can't really exert their boundaries.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very hard for them to do so. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Do you think, though, you said that no one can see it but yourself, but I think your instructors could see it in you, right?
For sure.
I think that it's.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's, as a kid, it's tricky. It's tricky, right? But I think as the instructors can maybe see it.
I think it's because
I see it in my staff, by the way, sometimes.
But I think it's because it's a learning thing, and burning out tends to prohibit your learning. Like, sorry, like if there's a, like a bump in the learning process, of course the teacher's able to recognize that, because they're the one teaching you. So I think it is a big thing. I meant in terms of, like, when I say people can't really recognize it, I meant in terms of parents. But I think sometimes parents can't really. Generally can't really recognize when a child is burnt out, because they're mainly focused on going to these commitments and going to making their child the best that they can be, without realizing that, you know, resting is productive and other things as well.
Working in the family, not on the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, yeah, in terms of, I think burnout basically is a type of chronic adversity, right? It's a type of adversity which happens kind of slowly over a long period of time, and it can pop up in various shapes and forms at different stages of life. Sometimes you got to hustle, you got to get through it, doing a thesis, final exams, these types of things. You're feeling burned out, get into it.
It's one of those things where like you sometimes just, of course it's hard as a kid, but when you're a bit older, you realize no one's gonna come save you. Like no one, there's no like knight in shining armor that's gonna come and save you, and you know everything's gonna be okay. Like you gotta just do it.
Yeah.
And
and then sometimes the way to be the knight in shining armor, the way to just do it is to take the day off.
Yeah, because resting is productive.
Yeah.
Literally like chilling, doing nothing, that is productive because you can be a better person like the next day. Like I personally feel like I actually don't feel like my commitments are quite, I have like 3 main commitments, but it does feel overwhelming. So I do need one day when I have a day if I do nothing at all, because then I've given myself that reassurance. Like if I am at work, for example, I'm like, okay, it's fine. I had my day off to rest. Whereas now I can now work hard. Whereas if I didn't have that, I'm like, oh, I had to do this and I had to do that and I had to do this. It becomes overwhelming as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. One of my best mates in Scotland, he's one of the strongest men in the country. He's a cool cat, but he's a wee bit mad. And he gave me a piece of advice, and he was like, he does like really intense training. Okay, he is literally one of the strongest men. He does
like a weightlifter.
He does the Scottish strongman. I mean, I don't want to limit him to one type of talent, but he's very capable. He has a strength and conditioning gym, and he lifts extremely heavy things, like double your body weight, maybe 3 times your body weight. It just picks it up, puts it on a shelf. Like that's what he does.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like seriously strong. And he said to me, 1 day per week, rest your nervous system. Just don't do anything. Don't take on that stimulation. And what a piece of advice. Like, what a piece of advice. Massive. The other one is the 2-day weekend. I've been quite a strong believer in the 2-day weekend for quite a long time. But I did go, and I know that you will have gone a long period without a 2-day weekend. Right, I know it for sure. But
especially because I work on the weekends, so it's like I'll have uni, then I'll have choi, then I'll work. So those are my 3 main things that I do. And without like, I think the 2-day weekend is, you know, you need 1 day to do absolutely nothing, then 1 day to prepare for the week.
Yeah, to do the other things, your own personal bits and bobs.
I think it's so underrated. Like,
it
and
is.
the fact that's why you need to have the weekend.
The
like,
2 days, even if it's not like my weekend is Friday, Saturday. I'm blessed to have Saturday after years of having like, you know, you want to have a successful martial arts school, you better have classes on the weekend. But like there was a period when to really get things going here in Malaysia, I was working 27 days a month. I didn't take the public holidays. So that meant every single month there was a 12-day stretch of no days off. And that you can say, yeah, that's, you're hustling, but you're doing what you love.
Did you ever feel like you were like burnt out? Like
it was an absolutely serious problem. Like it was really serious. I was very badly burned out, and then you get depressed. It takes a toll on you physically as well.
How did you like overcome that?
By reducing my workload. That was key. My mum advised me against it. My mum was like,
"Is it also
don't
difficult,
take an extra day."
Mate, taking that step, being like you're a school owner, and taking that step to reduce your workload, because you've been in Taekwondo your whole life, right?
Yeah.
So was that a very hard thing for you to do?
Taking on is, it's exciting, and I'm naturally quite ambitious, so I had big designs, and there was something already happening because my mum my mum is the one who had opened the school that I took on. So for sure there was like the fun of it, but then at some point you say, how are we going to do that? I'll do it. How are we going to do that? I'll do it. And then at some point you can't respond to how are we going to do that with I'll do it anymore. You need to actually delegate.
Yeah.
Or
delegate.
not take it on in the first place. And for me, I decided to delegate.
And was it a big thing for you to trust someone else to do it the way that you would do it? Because sometimes when people just say like, I'll do it, it's because they sometimes don't think that, they think that, you know, they only really trust their way. Was that a thing for you? Or?
No, because I knew very, very simply, in Malaysia, there is never going to be someone like me. Because I've been doing Choi Kwan Do since I was 4 years old. There could be in the future, but like in 27 years' time. But I wasn't playing the 27-year game when I didn't even know if I was going to live here, right? I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I just kicking and punching, and then one thing leads to another, and then all of a sudden it's been 9 years. But like I was extremely clear on the beginning that I was going to be training everyone from scratch, and I was going to be, you know, having guests from overseas to come and help out, people who had been training since they were kids. So everything by design was to have the sum greater than have the whole greater than the sum of its parts. And so the way that we, like, for example, having such small classes, the space and so many things was all because I knew the instructors, I wanted to give them a bite-sized task. And I knew that it was not going to be, definitely they wouldn't do it like me, but the goal was for them to ultimately do it. So since the beginning, I've always been training instructors.
Everyone brings something new. Everyone brings something different. And that's why it being a team makes it one big, what's that word?
Synergy? Something synergistic? Is that what you're thinking of?
I think so. I think something like that.
So,
I think it's one big, not performance, but one big thing, one big outcome. Okay. One successful outcome due to the different things that people bring in within the team.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're talking about like the teenager and the mum, like they're both very different, but they both bring different things, and together you kind of have the whole package.
Yeah, I think the goal is to create complete instructors, right? Like football, we always talk about the complete footballer can do everything, right? And so that's always the goal. But it's very, very rarely the starting point, right? The starting point is you've got some sort of background. Maybe it's just that you've been learning in the class, but also it could be that you've been, I had a couple of people, like one, for example, was a personal trainer, one was a basketball coach, one was a black belt in Taekwondo, one was a breakdance instructor, one had a degree in sports science. You know, these are all, more than one had a black belt in Taekwondo, but these are all different kind of backgrounds, which then mean that they bring a relevant experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you want to give them a role which plays to their strengths and let someone else cover their weaknesses, and do it with very small groups. And of course, you have to do it with a clear game plan, with instruction. And the thing that was most difficult was doing it with supervision. That was the most difficult. And so having them in teams also gave them more accountability, and from a safeguarding perspective was very important. But that was all back in the day. Back in the day. Let's move on. Back in the day. So, adversity, us helping people, right? We've spoken a little bit about overcoming our own challenges. We spoke a little bit about your challenges with school, family. We've got, I think, identity and community are like two things that I think we should talk about. Confidence and identity, and then another is community. Which one are you feeling first? Let's
do identity.
Yeah. So you spoke about having 3 roles in your life, and we did a preamble, a little chat in the car on the way here. and you were talking about confidence and your confidence coming from multiple sources and your how you identify. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so at university, I studied neuroscience, and one big aspect of neuroscience is psychology. And they were talking about how having multiple things in your life allows you to sort of build a stronger identity. For example, if you put all of your energy and all of your identity on one thing, I think it's quite a common thing when you're young to do it into a sport. Like, say, for example, you want to be a footballer when you grow up, say, right? And then it's very common you get injured. You can feel like your whole world is crumbling down. Your whole world is crumbling down and you think, okay, what am I going to do? What this? But say, for example, you're someone who does a sport, goes to school, does another hobby. For example, I'm going to talk about my personal experiences with it. Say, for example, I did a test in school and I got a really bad grade. I wouldn't think I'm a bad person. I would think, okay, I just lacked in the student aspect, but I might have had a good class at Choi Kwon Do. I might have had a really good teaching day, and that way it is a downer in terms of my student. Oh, sorry, in terms of my student role, I not failed, but in terms of it was a negative thing. But I brought it back up with another aspect of my identity, because I don't only identify as a student, I identify as a martial arts instructor, a martial arts student, an academic student, and also my own person, right? So I think if you've just put all of it into one factor and one thing goes wrong, because it's going to go wrong, like it's inevitable. It's going to, something will probably go wrong, which makes you a better person in the long run, but you can't see that in the moment. So you need something else to kind of back it up in terms of reassure you that your overall identity is not ruined. It's just that specific part just might be weak in the present moment.
Yeah. So you're basically saying that your confidence can come from multiple sources. You can gain confidence from being a martial artist, confidence from being a martial art instructor, confidence from being a student. Confidence also, like, confidence can come from your family, right? But if you've got one or two or three of those potential sources of confidence that are actually sources of adversity, then having
multiple of them.
You've not put all your eggs in the one basket.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're more stable.
I think it's a very, very big thing for someone to have multiple things that they're interested in and multiple things that they identify with, rather than just having one, because that way you can back yourself up a little bit.
What if, playing devil's advocate, what if you say, I want to be the very best, like no one ever was, dun, dun, dun. And you say, I'm going to do only this thing. I'm going to do it 110%. I'm going to do it every minute of every day. I'm going to do it 7 days a week. No days off. You know, like all in. Because that's going to lead me to where I want to be. Let's say that someone has this type of mindset. Is that not valid? Is that not valid as...
For sure. I think it's a very valid thing. Like, being passionate about something's a very lucky thing. Like, not everyone has passion. And I think if you're passionate about something and you want to succeed in something, then for sure, you know, you should put your all into it. However, you should also have something that you identify with as well, because say that one thing, you're going to have ups and downs with it. You every success story has a downfall, I think. I don't, maybe there might be one that's like, went all the way up.
Oh my
but like,
days, that's a conversation for another time.
Okay, yeah.
Well, okay,
but
I'm
like,
trying to hold back here. Yeah.
Generally, most success stories have a rock bottom.
Oh yeah.
And in that rock bottom, when people talk about how they kind of got out of it, they don't talk about the thing itself, but they talk about other factors within their life. And that might be a support system, that might be something else that they were doing. And it's because when you have a support system, you're identifying as the person you are outside of the activity.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Definitely we need to talk about support systems. I do want to linger ever so slightly on rock bottom, bouncing back. You know, I have my peculiar obsessions. you're aware of this, right?
Yeah.
And you know I'm a little bit obsessed with the Mongols and the history of Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
This guy, okay, one of the people who, if you look at their influence, one of the most influential people in history, right? I'm not gonna make this 1 hour of Genghis Khan. It could be, I'll make it 2 minutes, but I'm serious. This is why the story is so fascinating to me. Dad died when he was a kid. He had a bounty on his head because he was next in line for the tribe. Lived as an outcast, exiled with his mom and with the family. Killed his own brother.
Why?
Because his brother was, how to say, his brother was sort of nasty, evil, whatever.
So he just killed him?
Killed his own brother.
Damn.
While he's exiled, man, living in the forest, living a bounty on his head. People come to try and kill him. He ends up, manages to move this way, move that way, starts making plays, marries the woman that he was like supposed to, he was when he was a kid. Was actually the way his dad died was when he was going to arrange his marriage. Then he ends up in this situation where he's managed to get himself married. His wife gets kidnapped, so he has to free his wife. Goes to his uncle, makes some deals, does some things, manages to get his wife back. His wife's pregnant, having been in captivity for 9 months.
Oh no.
Like, how many cases of rock bottom is this for this guy, man?
God.
Takes it in his stride, moves on, unifies the Mongols based on principle. He uses principle rather than caste and creed. Then sets them outward and essentially leads to the largest land empire in history. Literally, the influence of Genghis Khan is almost unfathomable. It's absolutely mad. And this story is rock bottom so many times. He was like literally in chains at one point, like a slave. Like, mad story. That's why I'm obsessed with it. That's why, because it's a mad story.
That sounds like a movie.
There is movies about it, not all historically accurate, but yeah, it's mad. Right. Enough of that. That was definitely a tangent. That was definitely a tangent, but one that definitely lights the fire for me. Yeah. Oh my days. Right.
Talk about principles as well. Like maybe we can sort of talk about how Taekwondo principles relate to adversity and identification as a martial artist. Like, I was thinking about like how, like when this topic came up, I was thinking about how the principles and how we instill them into our life, and I think each and every one of them is a thing. For example, should we go through them?
Yeah.
So let's talk about humility, for example.
Yeah.
I think one big thing that trauma or a bad experience can do is people can tend to use it as an excuse, and they can tend to lose sense of their moral. Is that integrity? Oh, anyway. Sue's. I've lost my train of thought.
Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about integrity first. That's absolutely fine.
No, because I was going to talk about humility, like kind of remaining true to yourself and remaining as someone who doesn't then become this villain and to become this bad person because they're using their past experience as an excuse to then behave in a certain way. And I think taking accountability for it is one of the big things that, it's instilled in you as a martial artist. Like, you need to make sure that you're taking accountability and you're taking responsibility for what has happened, and you're then acting upon that as a consequence.
Yes. Integrity.
Remaining to like your moral code. The same thing, right? Like. Yeah.
I think like the humility sometimes is take it on the chin. Have the humility to say, especially to own it, I've messed up. Like I said, I'm the source of my own adversity. Me personally, I'm the source of a lot of my own adversity.
Same.
Present, past, and probably future as well. So sometimes you just got to be humble and say, you know what, I messed up.
That's a big thing. Like, just admitting to yourself that sometimes you were the problem.
I could very much be the problem.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm aware of
Same.
that.
As someone, like, sometimes with me, like, I am a very, very big overthinker. Like, everyone around my life knows that I overthink a lot. So I think sometimes I create, not even sometimes, I do create problems in my head, and it's not even a problem. It's not even a problem, but it's become a problem for me. And then I have to just think, okay, you know what? Getting out of that is a big thing. And yeah, just sometimes being like, you know what? It was just me. Like, I just have this mindset and I just need to get out of it.
Yeah, I think I also went for a little bit of counselling on the subject of anxiety. I had a patch about a year ago, year and a bit ago, and it was there was things I was thinking about, but not doing anything, and I was kept trying that self-control. One of our other principles, trying. That's one thing I learned from Taekwondo, even sometimes too much, was like inaction. Like the feeling is there, but I don't do it because I control. But like sometimes you gotta do the thing. So yeah, basically that overthinking, the way that the counselor, therapist, I don't know the right term, the way that the lady explained it to me.
The lady.
The lady explained that, you know, your body gave you you were given a little thought about it, and then you didn't do anything. So then you were given another one, and then you didn't do anything, and then you were given physical symptoms, and then you didn't do anything, and then, you know,
I had this conversation with my counselor as well.
Yeah.
They were like, look, you're gonna run out of gas one day. Like, you're gonna have to. It's gonna keep going until physically it manifests, and then you just.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that listening to yourself. Gentleness, our third principle in Taekwondo. Being gentle with yourself.
With yourself. I think in terms of gentleness, there's two different perspectives. Obviously, being kind with others and being someone who is gentle within their actions. But I think a big thing, especially with adversity, is being kind to yourself. It's a very big thing for you to be like, oh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, and be very critical. I'm very much someone that's like that. I'm very critical of my own actions, thinking about what I can do better. But then I just got to give myself some slack, because there's this quote, and it's like, hurt people. Like,
oh my days.
Yeah, like something that's like, when someone's like rude, or someone that's just like not a very nice person, more time they're just going through a lot of things themselves. And of course that doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does explain it. And I think one thing I'm someone that does reflect on my past a lot. And when I was in like year 7, year 8, I always think, oh, I was such a weird person. Like in terms of the fact that, like,
You were. Sure you're not still?
a little bit, but for the better this time. Like, in terms of like, I would leave good friends to go hang out with the popular kids. I would try fit in. I would try do this. I was very like, if I could talk to Savera now, I'd just be like, girl, just calm down. But anyways, and then I realized how much I was going through at that time. I've just got to give myself some slack. Like,
Yeah.
young Savera was going through a lot, and you know, all I have to just say is bless her, really. And I think I acknowledging that was a big thing. And it's like, it also makes, once you acknowledge that within yourself as well, it allows you to then be more forgiving towards other people. And I think when you're able to forgive yourself, and you're able to acknowledge that bad things that happen for you allow you to become a better person, it allows you to be a more forgiving person to other people as well. Like, for example, if someone's then having a bad behavior towards yourself, maybe you can think, giving them the benefit of the doubt is it's what then is a trait that you can then pick up from that.
Absolutely. I think what we're basically saying is it's important, and what we've learned from Taekwondo is having the humility to hold yourself accountable.
Exactly.
But also the gentleness to give yourself some slack.
Exactly. That
and
balance.
Give yourself a little break. And yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Gentleness starts within. Inwards
and onwards.
And onwards.
And
That's what we do. So it starts inside first, right? The gentleness. You're gentle with yourself. That will then radiate, permeate, and transcend into, you know, your life, people around you. Integrity, the same. That if you want integrity to be an outward thing, it's an inward thing. Integrity to yourself,
Exactly.
right? Which also is, I see it more like respect. I see like self-respect includes integrity for yourself
for sure.
and also gentleness to yourself.
Because also remaining, like, not being swayed by social norms and not being swayed by the perspective of what other people can give to you, remaining true to yourself and remaining, integrity.
Self-control. Humility, integrity, gentleness, self-control. These are the first four principles of Choi Kondo. Perseverance and then self-control and then unbreakable spirit. See, I usually have senior student at the back saying it. Yeah, perseverance and self-control.
Yeah. Perseverance is quite self-explanatory. Like, I think it's one of those things where you just got to keep going. And there's, again, that bringing that point back about no one's going to come save you. So you just got to keep going and keep doing it.